The rain-slick streets of Seattle blurred past my windshield as I gripped the steering wheel with white-knuckled hands, my heart pounding like a bass drum in a grunge concert. "I miss you," I slurred into the phone, the words tumbling out before my sober self could slam on the brakes. His voice cracked on the other end, raw, unguarded, like the first crack in a dam, and in that split second, I knew I'd just shattered the fragile peace I'd built over the last 6 months without him. It was one of those Pacific Northwest nights where the sky hung low and heavy, the kind that makes you feel like the weight of the world is pressing down on your shoulders. I'd been at the Crocodile, that dive bar on First Avenue where the ghosts of Nirvana still lingered in the graffiti-scratched walls. My best friend Jax had dragged me there for my birthday 32 single, and staring down the barrel of another year without dash. One too many IPAs and the dam inside me broke. I stumbled out into the drizzle, fumbling for my phone in the pocket of my soaked flannel shirt. His number was still there, thumbtacked to the top of my recents like a scarlet letter I couldn't delete. Just one call, I told myself, the alcohol whispering sweet nothings. What's the harm? The line rang twice, then his voice, deep, familiar, laced with that faint southern drawl he'd picked up from summers in Savannah before we met, filled the cab of my beat-up Toyota. "Hello." It was tentative, like he was answering a wrong number from a life he'd left behind. I froze, the wipers slapping rhythmically against the rain-spattered glass. My mouth went dry, but the words came anyway, fueled by liquid courage and a loneliness that had been festering like an untreated wound. "It's me, Ethan." A pause that stretched like taffy, pulling at every nerve. I could picture him in his cramped Brooklyn studio. Wait, no, he'd moved back to Seattle after the breakup, hadn't he? To start fresh, he'd said. Bullshit. We'd both fled New York for the same rainy reason, each other. "Ethan." His tone sharpened, a mix of surprise and something sharper, like hurt wrapped in caution. "It's late. You okay?" No, I wasn't okay. I hadn't been since the day he walked out of our loft in Capitol Hill, suitcase in hand, eyes red-rimmed but resolute. It was the betrayal that gutted me. Not some torrid affair, thank God, but the slow poison of unspoken truths. He'd hidden his spiraling anxiety from me, let it fester until our fights turned nuclear. One night, after I'd found his half-empty pill bottle from a prescription he'd never mentioned, he confessed, "I can't breathe here, Ethan. With you. It's too much. Too much love, too much pressure, too much everything." He'd left to find himself, dragging our shared dreams of opening a little coffee shop, bean roasts and board games, a haven for queer folks in the city, down with him. "I'm not okay," I admitted, the confession spilling out like cheap whiskey. "I miss you. God, I miss you so much it hurts." The words hung there, vulnerable and exposed, the rain mirroring the tears I hadn't let fall in months. There was silence, then a shaky exhale. "Ethan, you can't just call like this. It's been 6 months." "I know, but I had to say it, before I chicken out again." My voice cracked and I hated how small I sounded, like the kid who'd come out to his conservative Texas family at 17 and got shipped off to an understanding aunt in Seattle. Aunt Clara, bless her, had handed me a latte and said, "Honey loves a storm. Ride it out." He didn't hang up. That was the hook that reeled me in deeper. Instead he whispered, "Where are you?" "Driving home from the Croc. Jax made me go out. Said I needed to live a little." I laughed bitterly, the sound echoing hollow in the car. "As if I could without you." Another pause, then. "Pull over. Now. You're drunk." "I'm fine." "Ethan. Pull over." His voice brooked no argument, the old command slipping back like muscle memory. I veered into a parking spot outside a flickering neon sign for Pike Place Market. Closed for the night, but the ghost of fishmongers and flower stalls lingered in the air. The engine ticked as it cooled, and so did I, the buzz fading under the weight of what I'd unleashed. "Tell me what's going on," he said softly. "Really?" And just like that, the floodgates opened. I told him about the promotion at the ad agency that meant nothing without someone to celebrate with, the way our mutual friends tiptoed around mentions of him like he was a landmine, the empty side of the bed that still smelled faintly of his cedar cologne. He listened, murmuring encouragements that twisted the knife deeper because they felt like home. By the time I finished, the rain had eased to a mist, and my head cleared enough to register the insanity of it all. "I'm sorry," I said. This was stupid. Forget I. No. His interruption was firm. Come over. We need to talk. Sober. My heart stuttered. I. Text me when you're here. I'll leave the door unlocked. Click. The line went dead, but the echo of his voice lingered, pulling me through the night like a siren's call. I sat there for a full minute, staring at the dark bulk of the market across the street, where tourists haggled over lavender bouquets by day. Was this a trap? A mercy killing for whatever remnants of us still clung to life? Or, God forbid, a second chance? The drive to his apartment in Fremont took 20 agonizing minutes, each red light a chance to turn back. But I didn't. I couldn't. His building was a converted warehouse, fairy lights strung along the balconies like stars brought down to earth. I climbed the stairs on rubber legs, the door to 3B ajar just as promised. Inside, the space was a mirror of our old life. Exposed brick walls, vinyl records stacked by the turntable, that god-awful abstract painting we'd impulse bought in Soho. He was in the kitchen pouring coffee, black for me, 2 sugars for him. His back to me, shoulders tense under a faded Soundgarden tee. Ethan. He turned, and there he was, tousled dark hair, hazel eyes shadowed with exhaustion, the faint stubble I'd always teased him about. At 34, he looked every bit the architect he'd become. Sharp lines softened by the life we'd shared. But there was a new fragility there, a crack in the facade. Lame. So lame. I hovered in the doorway, hands shoved in my pockets. He handed me the mug, our fingers brushing electric, like the first time we'd touched at that Pride after-party in the village 3 years ago. Sit. And don't bullshit me. Why tonight? Why now? I sank onto the worn leather couch, the steam from the coffee curling like smoke signals. Because it's my birthday. And Jack said something that stuck. You're not living, man. You're surviving. He's right. Every day without you feels like I'm holding my breath. Perched on the armrest opposite, close enough to touch but worlds away. I know the feeling. His admission hung between us, heavy as the rain clouds outside. But you hurt me too, Ethan. That last fight. You said I was running away like a coward. I was scared. The words clawed their way out. Scared you'd leave for good. And you did anyway. We talked, or rather dissected, until the sky lightened to pearl gray. Layers peeled back. His anxiety meds he'd started in secret, fearing I'd see him as broken. My workaholic tendencies that left him adrift in a city that chewed people up. It wasn't fireworks or grand gestures, just 2 men sifting through the wreckage, finding slivers of understanding amid the rubble. By dawn, as the first ferries horned their way across the Sound, he reached for my hand. I miss you too, he said simply. And in that moment, with the city waking around us, I dared to believe we could rebuild. But life, as it turns out, has a way of throwing curveballs. The next week blurred into a tentative rhythm. Coffee dates that stretched into dinners, walks along the locks where salmon leaped like they were defying gravity. Dash's laugh came easier. His touch lingered longer. We avoided the big labels, no boyfriends yet, just us in the spaces between. Jax, ever the protective wingman, eyed me warily over beers at his Queen Inn pub. Don't fuck this up, Eth. He's family. I won't, I promised, clinking bottles. But doubt not at me like Seattle's relentless damp. What if the anxiety reared its head again? What if I pushed too hard? The first real test came on a crisp October Saturday, leaves turning the arboretum into a kaleidoscope of red and gold. We'd planned a picnic, cheesy, romantic, the kind of thing we'd mocked in our cynical New York days but craved now. I arrived early, basket laden with crusty baguettes from Le Panier, and that Pinot Noir he loved. But as I spread the blanket under a canopy of maples, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Hey Ethan, it's Marcus from the agency. Heard you're back with Dash? Careful, man. I saw him last month at a bar in Belltown with some guy. Looked cozy. Thought you should know. My stomach dropped like I'd been sucker punched. Marcus, the smug junior copywriter who'd always had a chip on his shoulder about my promotion? Paranoia flickered. Could this be sabotage? But the seed was planted. I shoved the phone away, forcing a smile as Dash approached, wind tousling his hair, carrying wildflowers he'd picked from the path. Miss me? He grinned, that boyish flash of teeth that had hooked me from day one. Always. The lie tasted bitter on my tongue. We ate, we laughed, we kissed under the falling leaves like nothing had changed. But inside, suspicion coiled like a spring. That night, as we tangled in his sheets, chased, just holding each other like lifelines, I couldn't shake it. Who was this, some guy? A one-off? Or the betrayal I'd feared all along? Sleep evaded me, the city's hum a mocking lullaby. Monday brought clarity, or so I thought. At the office, overlooking Elliott Bay, I cornered Marcus in the break room, steam from the espresso machine hissing like my rising temper. What the hell was that text about? He smirked, stirring his latte with infuriating calm. Just looking out for you, bro. Was at Razor's Edge, that queer lounge on Pine. I was there with friends. He was hammered, draped over this blonde Adonis. Looked like more than buddies. My fists clenched around my coffee cup. You're lying. Am I? Ask him yourself. Marcus shrugged, sauntering off like he'd dropped a mic. The betrayal burned, hot and immediate. All those tender moments, were they just echoes? I left work early, driving aimlessly through traffic-clogged I-5, ending up at our old haunt, Gasworks Park, the skeletal towers looming like forgotten dreams against the sunset. I texted we need to talk. Now. He met me there an hour later, concern etching lines around his eyes. What's wrong? You sounded wrecked. I thrust my phone at him, the text glaring up like an accusation. Who is he? The guy from Belltown. His face drained of color. Ethan. That's not. Don't. My voice broke. Just tell me the truth. After everything, is this how we start again? With lies. He sank onto a rusted beam, head in hands. It was one night, a month ago before your call. I was spiraling, deadlines at the firm, the empty apartment. Went out to forget. Met this guy, Tyler. We talked, drank. Nothing happened. I swear. But I didn't tell you because I was ashamed of how lost I felt without you. Relief warred with rage, a toxic cocktail. Ashamed? Or guilty? Marcus saw you draped over him. Dash's eyes flashed. Marcus? That prick? He hates you, thinks you stole his spot. Probably twisted it to hurt you. He stood, closing the distance, hands framing my face. Ethan, listen. I ended it before it began. Walked out alone. Because even then I knew. It's always been you. The fight drained out of me, leaving exhaustion in its wake. We stood there as dusk deepened, the park's lights flickering on like hesitant stars. I believe you, I whispered finally. But we can't do this halfway. No more secrets. No more, he echoed, pulling me into an embrace that felt like absolution. The city sprawled below us, a glittering testament to second chances. But the real storm was brewing elsewhere. Jax called the next day, voice tight over the line as I sketched ad copy in a cafe near the Space Needle. We gotta talk. About My pen stilled. What now? Not over the phone. Meet me at my place. Now. Jax's Belltown loft was a chaos of graphic novels and half-finished canvases, the air thick with turpentine and unspoken tension. He paced as I perched on a stool, nursing a beer he hadn't offered. I didn't want to get involved, man, but I saw something. Last week, after you guys started hanging again. Saw what? Dread pooled in my gut. With Tyler. That same bar. They were arguing and tense. Looked like unfinished business. Jax ran a hand through his buzzed hair, eyes pleading. I followed him after. He got in Tyler's car. They drove off together. The room tilted. Betrayal round 2. This time from the friend who'd sworn to have my back. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Because I hoped it was nothing. But you're my brother. You deserve better than being played. Rage blinded me. I stormed out, tires screeching as I raced to Dash's. He answered the door shirtless, fresh from a shower, confusion blooming into fear as I shoved past him. Tyler. Again. Jax saw you. Ethan, wait. No. Gosh, how could you? After everything. I paced the living room, knocking over a stack of blueprints. I laid it all out. My heart. And you. You go back to him. It's not what you think. His voice trembled, wrapping a towel around his waist. Tyler, he's my sponsor. From AA. I started going back to meetings after the breakup. The argument was me telling him I was done hiding, that I wanted to fight for us. He drove me home that night because I was too shaken to drive. Eh? The words landed like a slap. Dash had never mentioned the drinking, not the full extent. Binge sessions after client losses, blackouts I'd chalked up to stress. Why didn't you tell me? Because I didn't want to be the broken one again. The guy who needs fixing. Tears streaked his face now, mirroring mine. But Jax. He twisted it. Why? The pieces clicked. Jax's sidelong glances, his sudden concern. Envy? Over our reconnection? Or deeper, had Jax harbored feelings all along? The thought twisted like a knife. We confronted him together the next evening at a neutral spot. The waterfront park, seals barking from the docks like accusatory chorus. Jax arrived defensive, arms crossed over his tattooed chest. This is bullshit. I'm protecting you, Eth. By lying. Dash's tone was steel. You knew about the meetings. Followed me anyway. Jax's facade cracked. Fine. Yeah, I followed. Because I see how he breaks you. Every time. And maybe I thought if he was out of the picture. He trailed off, eyes dropping to the pebbles at his feet. The admission hung there, raw and human. Not malice but misguided love. A crush Jax had buried under bro-code loyalty. Jax, I said softly, your family. But this almost cost me everything. He nodded, shoulders slumping. I'm sorry. To both of you. We hugged it out under the wheeling gulls. Forgiveness tasting like salt air and second chances. In the aftermath, scars lingered but healed. Dash and I dove into therapy. Couple sessions in a cozy office overlooking Lake Union, where we unpacked the baggage we'd dragged from coast to coast. He opened that coffee shop dream solo at first. Been there, queer that. A nod to our inside jokes, and I handled the marketing pro bono. Pride that year we marched hand in hand down Broadway. Rainbows fluttering like promises kept. One evening, 6 months after the drunk dial that changed everything, we stood on our balcony, fairy lights twinkling against the troll sculpture below. He turned to me, hazel eyes steady. Marry me. The word yes was a vow simple and profound. In a city of dreamers and doers we'd found our way back. Not perfect but real. Love, it turned out, wasn't a storm to ride out. It was the anchor in the gale. And as the fairies cut through the sound, carrying stories of their own, I knew. Sometimes the bravest thing is picking up the phone in the rain. The proposal hung in the air like the mist rolling off the water, soft and enveloping. Dash's hand trembled slightly as he slipped the ring onto my finger. A simple band of brushed tungsten, etched inside with coordinates. The exact spot in Central Park where we'd shared our first kiss under a canopy of cherry blossoms, back when New York felt invincible. I got it made last month, he confessed. His voice a low rumble against my ear as he pulled me close. Knew we'd get here. Eventually. I laughed, a watery sound that bubbled up from the depths. Eventually? After drunk dials and bar fights and best friend betrayals? You're an optimist, Dash Harper. Only for you, Ethan Cole. He kissed me then, slow and deep, the kind of kiss that erased the miles we'd wandered apart. The city below us pulsed with life. Jazz spilling from a nearby club, laughter from couples strolling the locks, the distant hum of the monorail snaking toward the Needle. Seattle had become our unlikely haven, a place of reinvention where the rain washed away the old hurts, leaving soil fertile for new growth. But reinvention, as I'd learn, comes with its own tempests. The weeks following blurred into a whirlwind of wedding plans, not the lavish affair we'd once joked about, with drag queens as bridesmaids and a cake topped by 2 grooms in flannel, but something intimate, heartfelt. A backyard ceremony at Aunt Clara's in West Seattle, with the sound of waves crashing as our soundtrack and Jax as best man, redemption arc intact. He threw himself into it, sketching invitations with rainbow filigree and cracking jokes over rehearsal dinners that had us in stitches. Yet beneath the joy, fissures appeared. Dash's architecture firm landed a big contract, redesigning a community center in the Central District, a hub for LGBTQ+ youth programs. It was his dream gig, pouring his soul into spaces that screamed safety and belonging. But the hours stretched long, blueprints bleeding into midnight, and I caught him popping anxiety pills like candy, the rattle of the bottle a grim metronome in our quiet mornings. You're pushing too hard, I said one evening, finding him slumped at the kitchen table, coffee cold and untouched. The fairy lights cast shadows that danced like specters on the walls. He rubbed his temples, hazel eyes dulled. Deadlines next week. Can't slack now. Slack? This isn't slacking, this is living. I knelt beside him, tracing the lines of exhaustion on his face. Remember what the therapist said? Boundaries, babe. A ghost of a smile. Dr. Patel's got a point. But this matters. These kids. They need this space. Like we needed it back then. I nodded, throat tight. He wasn't wrong. The Central District had been our first toehold in Seattle. Cheap rent in a neighborhood pulsing with Black and queer history, where we'd hosted game nights for misfits like us. But as I watched him dive deeper, a familiar unease stirred. The echo of our breakup when work had been my escape and his prison. Meanwhile, my own world at the agency tilted on its axis. Marcus, that snake, had been reassigned to my team. Corporate punishment or sabotage, who knew? He slithered through meetings with oily charm, pitching ideas that nipped at my heels. Great concept, Ethan, he'd say, all teeth. But have you considered optimizing? It grated, but I kept my cool, channeling the energy into late-night revisions that left me hollow-eyed. One Friday, after a pitch that bombed spectacularly, client feedback, too edgy, not enough heart. I came home to find Dash absent, a note on the fridge, at sight till late. Love you. The apartment felt cavernous, the turntables silent without his curation of Fleetwood Mac or the National. I poured a scotch neat against my better judgment, and scrolled through old photos. Us at the Folklife Festival, arms slung around shoulders. A blurry selfie from our road trip to Olympic, moss-draped trees framing our grins. The booze warmed me, loosening the knots, but it also unearthed doubts. Was this sustainable? Could we build a life without the old patterns resurfacing? The door clicked open around 1 a.m. Dash shuffling in with dirt-streaked jeans and a weary slump. Hey, he murmured, dropping his keys on the counter with a clatter. I rose, scotch glass in hand. Rough night. Productive. Got the youth lounge sketched, colors, lighting, all of it. His eyes lit briefly, that passion flickering like a pilot light. Then he noticed the drink. You too. Just one. Lie. It was 3. He didn't call me on it, just pulled me into a hug that smelled of sawdust and sweat. We made love on the couch, gentle, reconnecting, but in the afterglow, as his breathing evened into sleep, I stared at the ceiling, questions circling like vultures. The conflict escalated at the firm's holiday party, a glitzy affair at the Museum of Pop Culture, Jimi Hendrix's guitar winking from the shadows. Jax was there, date on his arm, a cute barista named Riley with a sleeve of tattoos and a laugh like wind chimes. Looking sharp, grooms-to-be, he teased, clinking champagne flutes. Marcus lurked in the periphery, schmoozing execs with that predatory gleam. Dash was in his element, charming the firm's partners with renderings of the community center on his tablet. Imagine walls that shift for art shows, nooks for storytelling circles. A space where stories like ours thrive. His voice carried that magnetic lilt, drawing nods and murmurs of approval. Pride swelled in my chest, until Marcus sidled up, flute in hand. Impressive pitch, Dash. But Ethan's told me about the overtime. Burnout's a bitch, huh? His eyes flicked to me, challenging. Dash stiffened, but his smile held. Passion keeps the fire lit, Marcus. You should try it sometime. The jab landed, and Marcus's facade slipped. A flash of venom before he recovered. Touché. Just looking out for my colleague's fiancé. He emphasized the word like a barb, sauntering off to refill his glass. Later, as snow flurried outside the EMP's glass dome. Rare for Seattle but magical. I pulled Dash aside in a quiet alcove lined with Nirvana memorabilia. What was that about? Nothing. He's just intense. Dash's deflection was too quick, his gaze sliding away. Intense? Or threatened? Talk to me. He sighed, leaning against a display case. Kurt Cobain's smashed guitar looming like a warning. Fine. Marcus cornered me last week at the site. Offered consulting on the project. Said he had connections that could fast-track funding. But it felt off. Like he wanted leverage over you through me. Rage simmered low. Leverage? That son of a bitch. I deal with Marcus Monday, HR, the works. But Dash's next words doused the fire. And he mentioned Tyler. Said he ran into him, that Tyler asked about us. Implied I was playing the field. Dash's jaw tightened. I shut it down, but it stirred shit up. Made me question if we're rushing this. The alcove spun. Question the wedding? After everything. Not us, the timing. With the project, your stress. Are we solid enough? His vulnerability cracked open, raw and aching. I cupped his face, thumbs brushing stubble. We're solid because we choose to be. Every day. Remember the drunk dial? That was rock bottom. This is us climbing. He nodded, but doubt lingered in his eyes like fog over the bay. We rejoined the party, hands linked, but the magic had frayed at the edges. The climax hit like a nor'wester 2 weeks later, on a gray December afternoon that mirrored my mood. I'd been at the agency finalizing a campaign for a local nonprofit, ironic, given the personal chaos, when my phone rang. Dr. Patel's office. Ethan, it's urgent. Dash missed his session. And his refill. We're concerned. Concerned. The word echoed as I raced across town, weaving through holiday traffic choked with minivans and delivery trucks. The community center site was a skeleton of steel beams and tarps flapping in the wind, workers buzzing like bees around a half-formed hive. I found him in a makeshift trailer, head bowed over blueprints, pill bottle empty on the desk. Dash. My voice was a whip crack. He startled, eyes bloodshot. What? Miss therapy. Out of meds. What the hell? I snatched the bottle, shaking it like an accusation. Empty. It's nothing. Just forgot. But his hand shook as he rolled the plans flat, avoiding my gaze. Forgot? Or avoided? This is the pattern, Dash. The one that broke us before. He surged to his feet, color flooding his cheeks. Don't you dare. I'm handling it, the project, us, everything. For once, I'm the one providing. Providing? By self-destructing. The words flew sharp as shards. I won't watch you crumble again. Then don't. His shout echoed off the metal walls, startling a worker outside. Maybe Jax was right. Maybe I'm poison. The mention ignited the powder keg. Jax? After his shit? You're throwing that in my face now. He cares. More than me. Betrayal twisted fresh, hot tears pricking my eyes. Is that what this is? You two against the world? No. God, Ethan, no. He deflated, sinking into a chair, head in hands. I'm scared. Of failing you. Of the wedding being a mistake if I'm not whole. The fight ebbed, leaving devastation. I knelt, gathering his hands, cold, trembling. You're whole to me. Always have been. But we fight together, not alone. He nodded, sobs racking him. Call Patel. Get the refill. I'll go back tonight. We did. The drive to the pharmacy was silent, then cathartic. Stories spilling like confessions. By the time we collapsed into bed that night, ring glinting on my finger, the storm had passed. But scars? They ran deep. Christmas Eve brought fragile peace. Aunt Clara's house glowed with lights, the air rich with cinnamon and pine. Jax arrived with Riley, bearing apologies wrapped in eggnog toasts. To family, he said, eyes earnest. The kind we choose. We exchanged gifts under the tree for Dash. A leather-bound sketchbook engraved with our blueprint. For me, tickets to Savannah, his hometown roots calling us south. As midnight neared, carols fading, Dash pulled me onto the porch, the sound lapping at the shore like a lullaby. Thank you, he whispered, forehead to mine. For seeing me. All of me. Always. The kiss was a seal, binding us against the gales ahead. But January ushered in the true reckoning. The community center's grand opening loomed, a gala fundraiser at the center itself. Now alive with murals of intertwined hands in every hue, lounges bathed in warm LEDs. Invitations went out citywide, queer icons RSVPing, the press buzzing. It was Dash's triumph, but pressure mounted like a vice. Marcus struck then, his final play. An anonymous email hit my inbox the week before. Leaked concerns from staff about code violations on the site. Shoddy wiring, permit oversights. Attached, photos timestamped during Dash's overtime marathons. It reeked of setup, Marcus's fingerprints all over the metadata I'd spotted in a panic-fueled scrub. I confronted him in the agency parking garage, rain sheeting down like judgment. This your revenge? For calling you out? He leaned against his Audi, smug as ever. Proof, Ethan. Your boy's firm is cutting corners. Save face, pull your support. Or watch it burn. You're done. I forwarded it all to HR, the firm's ethics board, even the press contact for the gala. By morning, Marcus was suspended, his career a smoldering ruin. The fallout rippled to the opening night. As guests milled, drag performers lip-syncing under chandeliers, youth sharing stories in the circle nooks. Dash took the mic, voice steady despite the shadows under his eyes. This space is for the broken, the brave, the becoming. Built on love's labor. Then a heckler from the back, a disgruntled subcontractor planted, shouted about safety risks, waving printouts. Gasps rippled, cameras flashing. My heart seized. But Dash didn't falter. Questions are welcome. So are truths. He called up the lead engineer, who debunked it point by point, permits clean, inspections passed. The room exhaled, applause thundering as the saboteur slunk out, tail between legs. Later in the quiet lounge, Dash found me nursing a soda. You okay? Better now. I pulled him down beside me, our rings clinking softly. Proud of you. The gala raised double its goal. Headlines hailing it Seattle's beacon for belonging. But the real victory was ours. Therapy deepened, boundaries held, love fortified. Spring bloomed with our wedding, vows exchanged under Clara's arbor, Jax's toast tear-jerking. To drunk dials and detours. May your love always find its way home. As we danced barefoot on the grass, the Puget Sound whispering approval, I knew we'd weathered the storms. And in each other's arms we'd found our harbor. The honeymoon was a deliberate unhurriedness, a counterpoint to the frenzy we'd left behind. We chose the San Juan Islands, ferry ride from Anacortes, the Salish Sea parting like a blue veil to reveal emerald isles dotted with orcas dorsal fins slicing the horizon. Our cabin at Rosario Resort perched on the water's edge. A cedar eyrie with a deck where we'd wake to bald eagles wheeling overhead and the rhythmic slap of waves against pilings. No agendas, no deadlines, just us, armed with a cooler of local brews, a stack of dog-eared paperbacks, and the unspoken pact to let the healing settle. Those first days were a revelation in simplicity. Mornings, I'd brew coffee on the wood stove while Dash kayaked out to spot seals, returning salt-crusted and exhilarated. His laughter chasing away the last cobwebs of winter's doubts. Afternoons melted into hikes through madrona groves, bark peeling like old skin, shedding our past selves. We'd pause at overlooks, hands linked, watching ferries carve white wakes toward the mainland, tiny specks of lives in motion much like ours. One evening as the sun dipped low, painting the straits in molten gold, Dash broached the unbroached. We were tangled on an Adirondack chair, my head on his chest, his fingers tracing lazy patterns on my arm. I've been thinking about kids. The word landed soft but seismic. Kids. In our whirlwind from drunk dial to I do. It hadn't surfaced. Not seriously. I'd always figured someday maybe surrogacy or adoption, a family pieced together like our own queer mosaic. But hearing it from him, voice tentative yet hopeful, cracked something open. Yeah. I lifted my head, meeting his gaze. Hazel depths flecked with green, like sea glass tumbled by tides. What sparked it? He shrugged, a boyish gesture that belied the weight. The center. Those kids sharing their stories, coming out young, finding community, made me want to give that back. A home, Ethan. With you. Emotion swelled thick in my throat. I'd like that. Terrify me a little, but yeah. We talked late into the twilight. Logistics, agencies in Portland, profiles online, fears, my Texas ghosts whispering inadequacy. His anxiety flaring at the unknown. Dreams, a backyard swing set overlooking the sound, bedtime stories laced with our truths. It wasn't decided, just planted, a seed in fertile soil. Back in Seattle, reality reasserted with gentle insistence. The coffee shop thrived. Being there, queer that became a nexus, mornings buzzing with laptop warriors and open mic nights drawing poets spinning verses of love's defiance. I scaled back agency hours, consulting freelance to reclaim evenings for us. Cooking paella on the balcony, vinyl spinning Tracy Chapman as rain pattered on the roof. But harmony, fragile as it was, faced its next gauntlet in the form of family. Aunt Clara, our rock, called one drizzly April afternoon while I was elbow-deep in ad mock-ups. Ethan, honey, your folks, they're coming. For a visit. The line went static in my ears. My parents, staunch Baptists from Lubbock, the same folks who'd prayed over my confusion and shipped me west at 17. We'd mended fences tentatively over years. Mother's Day cards, the occasional call where Dad grunted approvals of my business success. But a visit? To our home, rings glinting as evidence? When? My voice was a rasp. Next month. There. Trying Ethan. Your mama's been reading those PFLAG books I sent. PFLAG parents, families, and friends of lesbians and gays. Claire's doing, no doubt. I hung up, dialing Dash immediately. Incoming storm. The Texas tornadoes. He absorbed it over speaker. Blueprints rustling in the background. We'll weather it. Together. Set ground rules, love, no lectures. The arrival was a comedy of culture clash wrapped in Midwestern politeness. They flew into Seattle-Tacoma on a Friday, Mom in floral prints and pearls, Dad in khakis starched to cardboard, suitcases monogrammed from a lifetime of oilfield barbecues. We picked them up in the Toyota, Dash at the wheel, small talk crackling like static. Fine weather for y'all, he drawled, channeling his Savannah charm. Mom cooed over the scenery. Why, it's like God's own palette. While Dad eyed the rainbow flag sticker on our bumper with pursed lips. Dinner that night was Clara's spread. Salmon al fresco, her backyard a riot of hydrangeas. Tension simmered under small talk. Mom's inquiries about the wedding flowers, Dad's gruff congrats son over pie. But as dusk fell, the dam cracked. Mom wine loosened, set down her fork. Ethan, we've been wrong. About you. About love. Dad cleared his throat, face ruddy. Bible says a lot, but it says more about grace. Seeing you happy. That's what counts. Där spricht, mine, deirs. Dash squeezed my knee under the table, his presence a bulwark. Hugs followed, awkward but earnest, the first real bridge across the chasm. Not all bridges held, though. They're weak unearthed landmines. Dad's offhand joke about that lifestyle at the market, earning a sharp dad from me. Mom's whispered prayers over breakfast that left Dash retreating to the porch. We navigated with grace, mostly, ending with a farewell brunch where promises of future visits hung like hopeful kites. In the quiet after, as their plane lifted off, Dash and I collapsed on the couch, spent but lighter. That was something, he said, head on my shoulder. Human, I replied. Messy but human. Summer brought expansion. The coffee shop annexed a patio, string lights, and bistro tables, drawing crowds for sunset trivia. Queer history nights that had Jax emceeing with flair. My freelance gigs flourished, a campaign for a trans youth hotline going viral, billboards blooming across a 90 like affirmations. Yet, beneath the bloom, conflict stirred anew. Not from without but within. Dash's anxiety, tamed but not tamed, flared during a firm merger. New partners meant scrutiny. His designs dissected in boardrooms that reeked of old money and older biases. They're questioning the inclusivity angle. He vented one night, pacing our living room, pill bottle clutched like a talisman. Like safe spaces are a trend. I pulled him down, grounding. They're wrong. You're not. But the pressure built, manifesting in missed dinners, snapped replies. Echoes of before. One night, after a brutal critique left him ghost white, he lashed out. You don't get it, Ethan. This isn't ads, it's legacy. The word stung, implying my work was lesser. And mine is? Disposable. Retort flew, doors slammed. He stormed to the spare room, our future nursery, leaving me adrift in the kitchen, heart hammering. Morning brought apologies over burnt toast. I'm scared of losing myself in this, he admitted, voice small. Again. We recommitted. Weekly check-ins. A shared journal for unfiltered fears. It worked mostly until the betrayal no one saw coming. Fall's leaves turned, and with them opportunity. A fellowship in Chicago for Dash, a year-long gig at a progressive firm, honing sustainable designs for urban queer districts. It's huge, he said. Eyes alight over dinner at our favorite faux spot in the ID. Could change everything. Excitement warred with dread. A year apart? After vows, after storms weathered? We just got steady, I protested gently. Roots here. I know. But this is growth for us. His hand over mine, earnest. Weekend visits, FaceTime rituals. We can do long distance. Could we? The application went in, acceptance a foregone conclusion. Packing began, suitcases mocking from the hall. Then the call, Jack's voice edged with urgency. Check your email. Now. It was anonymous screenshots of texts from Dash to Tyler. Miss our talks. Chicago's calling, need your ear. Late nights here remind me of Belltown. Innocent. Or flirtation veiled. Betrayal's blade twisted deep. Tyler the sponsor, the ghost. After AA vows, after trust rebuilt? I confronted Dash that evening, phone thrust like evidence in court. His face crumpled. Ethan, no, it's not. Save it. Miss our talks? While you're packing for a city that swallows people whole. Tears hot, voice raw. Tyler's just a friend. He reached out when the fellowship hit, congrats, support. Nothing more. Desperation laced his plea. But doubt, that insidious fog, clouded judgment. Friends don't text at 2 a.m. about late nights. The fight escalated, words weapons. My accusations of patterns unbroken. His defenses cracking into sobs. I can't win. Every shadow's a threat. Make it easy, go to Chicago. Alone. The ultimatum slipped out, venomous. He recoiled as if slapped. You don't mean that. But I did, in the Hertz blaze. He left for the couch, the apartment echoing with silence. Dawn brought regret's hangover. I found him there, eyes puffy, fellowship letter crumpled nearby. Tore it up, he said flatly. If that's the cost. Guilt crashed over me. No, Dash, It's done. Resignation, not relief. The opportunity ashes, trust singed. We clawed back slowly. Couples therapy ramped up, Tyler blocked, boundaries redrawn. But the scar lingered. A reminder that love's not invincible. Winter's solstice party at the shop, eggnog and carols, fairy lights aglow. Tested the mend. Jax pulled me aside amid the mulled wine. You two okay? Looked tense. Honest. I sighed, snow dusting my jacket. Working on it. Again. He clapped my shoulder. That's marriage, man. The work. As midnight told, Dash found me on the patio, breath fogging the air. Dance with me. He extended a hand, playlist shifting to Wonderwall. Our ironic first dance pick. I took it, swaying under stars pricking the clouds. Sorry for the ultimatum. Sorry for the shadows. His forehead to mine. We'll cast them out. Together. The new year dawned with resolve. Chicago deferred, a joint application instead. Me freelancing remotely. Us tackling the Windy City as a team. Applications flew. Acceptance a joint triumph. But before departure, one last Seattle storm. Dad's heart attack, sudden as thunder. We flew south, Mom's voice cracking over the line. He asked for you, Ethan. Both of you. Lubbock's hospital smelled of antiseptic and regret. Dad pale in the bed, monitors beeping like accusations. Son, he rasped, gripping my hand, then Dash's. Proud. Of y'all. Tears flowed, his ours. Mom joined the huddle, family forged in frailty. He stabilized, a second lease whispered in recovery rooms. Back north, packing for Chicago felt like ascension. The move was chaos. U-Haul stuffed with vinyl and dreams. Farewell brunch with Jax and Clara, tear-streaked but buoyant. As the skyline receded in the rearview, Dash's hand in mine, I glanced back. Not with sorrow but gratitude. Seattle had been our crucible, forging us stronger. The Windy City awaited, gales and all. But with him, we'd fly. Chicago hit like a freight train. Lake Michigan's wind whipping off the lake, turning Michigan Avenue into a gauntlet of bundled pedestrians hustling past the bean. Its mirrored surface warping our reflections into abstractions. We leased a third-floor walk-up in Andersonville, a neighborhood pulsing with queer energy. Rainbow crosswalks, bookstores stacked with Audre Lorde, coffee shops where baristas knew your order and your pronouns. It felt like Seattle's spirited cousin, grittier, louder, but alive with the same defiant heartbeat. The fellowship thrust Dash into a vortex of innovation, collaborating on a high-rise with biophilic design, living walls, sky gardens, for a queer senior living co-op. His days blurred into site visits along the L tracks, evenings sketching by our bay window overlooking a courtyard where neighbors grilled plant-based brats and blasted Shaka Khan. This city's got soul, he'd say, charcoal smudging his fingers as he captured skyline silhouettes. Feels like we could build empires here. I freelance from a corner desk, laptop humming with pitches for national brands, sustainable fashion lines, apps for mental health check-ins. The flexibility was gold. Mornings free for runs along the lakefront trail, where the water stretched endless, a steel blue promise of horizons. Afternoons, I'd meet Dash for lunch at Sather's, cinnamon rolls the size of hubcaps, dissecting our days over coffee black as the loop's underbelly. But adjustments undercurrent pulled tricky. The move unearthed old rhythms. My Texas-bred reserve clashing with Chicago's brash camaraderie, Dash's anxiety twitching at the subway's subterranean roar. We'd argue over small stakes, whose turn to load the dishwasher, the thermostat war between his chill preference and my warmth-seeking. Yet, these were surface ripples, deeper we were rooting. Spring unfurled with festivals, the Printers' Row-Lit Fest, where we wandered booths hawking zines on queer history, Dash scoring a dog-eared copy of Stonewall for bedtime reading. Pride planning kicked off early. Parade routes mapped, float ideas scribbled on napkins. Jax visited in May, crashing on our futon, dragging us to Second City for improv nights that left ribs aching from laughter. This city's got bite, he declared over deep dish at Pequod's, caramelized crust flaking like autumn leaves. Suits you lovebirds. His stay mended more than miles. Over rooftop beers at Big Chicks, he confessed the root of his past sabotage, a flicker of jealousy not just for Dash, but for our ease, the way love looked effortless on us, while his dates fizzled like wet firecrackers. Riley's great, but it's work. Seeing you too inspires the hell out of me. We hugged it out under the L's rumble, brotherhood reaffirmed. Summer's heat wave baked the city, asphalt shimmering, but we thrived. Kayaking the Chicago River, green waters churning under drawbridges, picnics in Millennium Park, crown fountains faces spouting water like playful confessions. One sweltering July 4th we joined a block party in Uptown. Fireworks bursting over the lake, grills smoking with jerk chicken, a DJ spinning house remixes of Motown. Amid the throng, Dash pulled me close, sweat-slick skin pressing. "Marry me again," he murmured half-joking. "Every day," I replied, sealing it with a kiss that tasted of freedom. Yet, conflict brewed in autumn's amber haze. The fellowship's capstone, a public presentation on the co-op design, loomed, Dash's magnum opus. Rehearsals consumed him. Scale models on our dining table, projections flickering late into nights. I'd wake to his pacing whispers of self-doubt. What if they hate it? See me as the token gay architect. I'd pull him back to bed, anchoring. They'll see genius. Because that's you. But pressure's alchemy turned leaden. During a dry run with mentors, feedback scorched. Innovative but impractical. Scale back the activism. Focus on feasibility. He came home shattered, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the windows. They want safe. Bland. Not me. The fight ignited swift. Fight back, I urged, frustration fraying my patience. Don't fold. Fold? I'm drowning here. His shout echoed, eyes wild. You breeze through pitches, charm your way. This is scrutiny, Ethan. Real stakes. The implication landed. My work lightweight, his Sisyphean. So I'm wet arm candy with a laptop? Invalidating my grind because it's not blueprints. Words escalated, barbs flying. My detached optimism versus his paralyzing realism. He stormed out into the chill, leaving me with the model's fragile spires mocking from the table. Hours ticked by, texts unanswered, panic rising. I imagined worsts. Lakes pull old habits. He returned at dawn, key scraping like guilt. Collapsed on the couch, reeking of dive bar smoke. Walked the mag mile. Thought about us. About quitting. Don't. I knelt, gathering him. Not for them. For you. We called Dr. Patel via video. Her calm dissecting the trigger. Imposter syndrome amplified by change. Adjustments. Mindfulness apps during commutes. A mentor swap to a more affirming voice. The presentation day arrived crisp. Adler Planetarium's Doma Starry Vault for the event. Dash took the stage, voice steadying as slides bloomed. Renderings of sunlit lounges, murals co-designed with residents. Elders sharing stories under skylights. Questions came, probing then praising. This isn't just building, a panelist said. It's legacy. Applause swelled, genuine, and in the wings tears traced my cheeks. His success was ours, a bulwark against doubt. Winter clamped down. Lake effect snow blanketing the city in hush. Holiday lights strung Clark Street. Carols piping from speakers at Women and Children First Bookstore. We hosted Clara and Jax. Flights in for a white Christmas. Our walk-up transformed with a tree scavenged from the alley, ornaments hand-painted with inside jokes. Mom and Dad joined via Zoom from Lubbock, Dad's color better, toasting with sweet tea. To grandbabies someday. The word grandbabies stirred the seed planted in the San Juans. Post-holiday we dove in. Profiles on surrogacy sites, agency consults in the loop. Consultations were clinical yet charged, options, timelines, the leap of faith. It's scary, Dash admitted over Thai and Edgewater, Pat CU steaming. But right. A match surfaced in February. A surrogate named Lena. A teacher from Oak Park with a laugh like bells and a story mirroring ours. Queer family of origin, choosing this path from abundance. Meetings bloomed into connection. Coffee at her cozy bungalow. Walks with her golden retriever. Sharing dreams of the child who'd bridge our worlds. Excitement built, but so did vulnerability. Legal papers loomed, IVF schedules rigid as train tracks. One night, post-injection run for Lena, Dash faltered at home, needle kit trembling in his hands. What if I'm not dad material? The anxiety. How do I shield a kid from that? I held him steady. By being you. Honest, resilient. Our kid'll learn strength from that. The betrayal came subtle, insidious. A mismatched vial during the first transfer. Clinic error, but whispers of sabotage from a disgruntled tech rippled forums. Lena's worry echoed ours. Is it safe? Tests confirmed viability but trust frayed. Climax crested in April's thaw, lake ice cracking like fate. The embryo took. HCG levels climbing. Ultrasounds revealing a flickering heartbeat. Joy exploded. Calls to families, champagne toasts, mock for Lena. But in the glow, a shadow. Dash's firm offered permanence post-fellowship. A corner office with strings. Relocation to their DC satellite for a federal project. Prestige, he said over dinner at RPM Italian, pasta twirling forgotten. But DC? Away from this. From us? The subtext hung. We just planted roots. The baby. I know. Conflict etched his brow. But it's security. For our family. The argument simmered days. My freelance portability versus his career anchor. Chicago's queer haven versus DC's political pulse. Don't make me choose, I pleaded one stormy night, thunder rumbling over the lake. I'm providing. Echo of old fights. Then stay. Build here. Ultimatums ghost. He agonized, pacing rain-lashed streets. Decision landed over breakfast. DC part-time. Hybrid. We stay rooted. Relief, but the scare lingered. A reminder of fragility. Summer swelled Lena's belly. Our family forming in kicks felt at checkups. Jax flew in for a baby shower, gender-neutral blues and yellows, games that had Clara cackling. To the little Cole Harper. He toasted, eyes misty. May they inherit your stubborn hearts. As fall gilded the elms, labor loomed. We prepped the nursery, walls muraled with cityscapes, a crib carved by a local artisan. Doubts nipped. Parenting in a pandemic's tale, works juggle. But love's the great leveler. One equinox eve, contractions hit. Hospital dash through golden streets. Dash's hand vice grip in mine. Hours blurred, monitors beeping, nurses encouraging, Lena's strength a beacon. Dawn broke as our son arrived. River James Cole Harper, 7 pounds of wrinkled wonder, cry piercing like triumph. In the recovery room, Lena beaming exhausted. Dash cradled him first, tiny fist curling around his finger. Hey little man. We're yours. Tears streamed, mine, his, hers. Betrayal's echoes faded. This was redemption's chorus. Back home, Andersonville embraced us. Neighbors dropping casseroles, park strollers offering smiles. Sleepless nights bonded us deeper. Diaper dashes at 3 a.m., lullabies whispered in tandem. River's eyes, hazel like his dad's, watched us with ancient wisdom. One crisp October morning as leaves scurled past our window, Dash rocked him by the sill, city humming below. We made it, he murmured. Yeah, I agreed, joining the huddle. And it's just beginning. Chicago, with its windswept grace, had birthed us anew. Family, not blood but chosen, stronger than storms. Fatherhood reshaped time's contours, stretching days into elastic marathons and nights into fragmented dreams. River's arrival anchored us in the profound mundane. The soft heft of him against my chest during 4 a.m. feeds, the gurgle of his first coos echoing off our apartment's brick walls, the way his tiny lashes fluttered like moth wings in sleep. Andersonville became our village. Playgroups at the Burger Park playground, where nannies swapped tips over thermoses of coffee. Story hours at the library, shelves groaning with board books illustrated by queer creators. Dash and I traded shifts like sentinels. Him decamping to the co-op site with River in a carrier. Me typing proposals one-handed while he gnawed a teething ring. The rhythm was exhausting, exhilarating. A duet we'd composed on the fly. Yet, beneath the bliss, undercurrents tugged. The DC hybrid gig pulled Dash eastward bi-weekly. Amtrak rides blurring into conference calls from Union Station's marble halls. Miss you both, he'd text from layovers, photos of cherry blossoms in spring or monuments shrouded in fog. I'd reply with River's milestones. A gummy grin at 6 months, first crawl across the nursery rug patterned with lake waves. Jealousy flickered, unbidden. Not of his travel, but the ease with which he slipped into provider mode, blueprints under arm while I navigated freelance droughts. One video call, as he wrapped a panel in the Capitol, River babbled in my lap, reaching for the screen. Daddy's home soon, Dash cooed, but his eyes shadowed with fatigue. How's the pitch hunt? Slow. Honesty chafed. A major client had ghosted post-maternity leave, paternity in our case, muttering about availability, ageism, homophobia. The sting lingered. We'll pivot, he assured, ever the architect. Something bigger. Bigger came in summer swelter. A grant for the co-op's expansion, folding and family programming, daycare nooks for little ones like River, workshops for parents navigating queer kinship. Dash helmed it, passion reignited, but the admin deluge drowned him. Budgets, permits, donor schmoozes at galas where bow ties outnumbered beards. I stepped up, volunteering designs for the kids' spaces, murals of diverse families picnicking under urban canopies, interactive walls with magnetic letters spelling affirmations. Collaboration healed old rifts. Late nights at the drafting table, River conked out in a bassinet nearby, felt like partnership reborn. Autumn brought visitors. Clara, arms laden with Swedish meatballs and heirloom quilts. Jackson Riley, now engaged, toting a Montessori tower they'd built. The apartment brimmed, Thanksgiving table extended with sawhorses, turkey alongside tofurkey, River in a high chair smearing yams like abstract art. Toasts rang, to resilience, to roots transplanted thriving. But winter's grip squeezed tight. A nor'easter blanketed the Midwest, flights grounded, stranding Dash in D.C. during River's first fever. A harrowing night of cool cloths and pediatrician waits, his cries piercing deeper than wind howls. I'm sorry. Dash's voice crackled over the line, helpless. Wish I was there. You are, I soothed, though doubt gnawed. Was this sustainable? The pull of coasts, the juggle of dreams? Resolution crystallized in January's ice-glazed dawn. Post-fever, River rosy-cheeked and rambunctious, we bundled for a lakefront walk. Winds off Michigan biting but clarifying. Snow crunched under boots, River's sled whooshing behind. The hybrid's wearing thin, Dash confessed, breath fogging. DC's glittering, but it's not us. Quit. The word hung bold. Scale back. Focus local, the co-op may be our own firm. His hand found mine, mitten grip firm. With you, River. Here. Relief cascaded like the first thaw. We brainstormed over hot cocoa at a harborside cafe. HarperCole Designs. Branding eco-queer spaces, me handling outreach. Calls flew. Resignations gracious. Networks buzzing with leads. Spring's greening mirrored renewal. The co-op's family wing ribbon cut with fanfare. River toddling now, unveiling a plaque etched, for futures unfettered. Donors cheered, press snapped. Headlines touting Chicago's queer family frontier. Freelance Bloom 2. A podcast series on gay dads, my episodes raw with drunk dial origins, betrayals lessons, love's quiet victories. Listeners flooded inboxes. Your story gave me courage. Validation sweeter than any pitch. Summer solstice marked 2 years married. A vow renewal at the bean. Just us three, reflections infinite in its curve. River chased pigeons, chubby fists waving as we reaffirmed. In storms and sun I choose you. Fall deepened bonds. River's first words. Dada. Duel shouted, melting us. Preschool enrollment at a co-op emphasizing inclusivity. Jax's wedding in Seattle pulled us west. Flights with a squirmy 2-year-old. Clara's backyard alight with lanterns. Vows exchanged under the same arbor. Riley radiant. Jax's eyes only for him. Full circle. He whispered post-ceremony, River asleep on his shoulder. Back in Chicago, Winter whispered of expansion. Lena visited, now auntie by choice, bearing books from her classroom. Second kid, she teased, River clambering into her lap. Not yet, Dash laughed, but the seed stirred anew. Climax crested unexpectedly. A call from Lubbock, Mom's voice quavering. Your dad's. He's gone, Ethan. Hard again. This time. The world tilted. Flights booked frantic, River with Clara in tow. Funeral was a tapestry of contradictions. Baptist hymns in a chapel strung with subtle rainbows. Mom's quiet rebellion. Eulogies blending scripture with stories of the son who'd taught grace. Dad's last words relayed. Tell Ethan. Love wins. Grief's waves crashed. Night sobbing into Dash's shirt. River's confusion soothed with extra cuddles. But in the raw we found humanism's core. Forgiveness not just given but lived. Mom stayed with us post-burial. Bunking in the nursery turned guest room. Her hands gentle on River's curls. He was proud, honey. Of this life. She returned south lighter. PFLV meetings penciled in. A bridge enduring. Spring 2029 bloomed with purpose. Our firm launched first client. A youth shelter in Bronzeville. Designs weaving safety into every angle. River started preschool. Finger paints arriving home splashed with primary chaos. Life's mosaic gleamed. Playdates in the park, date nights at jazz clubs where saxophones wailed like hearts mending. One golden June evening as the sun dipped over the lake, we picnicked at Montrose Point. Blanket spread, River building sandcastles, Dash sketching the horizon. Think we could do it again? He asked, nodding at our boy. Another. The question thrilled, terrified. Yeah. Make it for us against the world. Laughter bubbled. Why stop at 4? A whole brigade. We submitted profiles afresh, hope's ember fanned. Not all tales end in tidy bows. Ours wove onward, threads of joy and jagged edges, but always toward light. Years later, at a family reunion in Seattle, Clara's porch sagging under grandkids' weight, River now 10, sister Sage 5, both towheads with hazel mischief, I raised a glass. To drunk dials. To I misuse that echo home. Dash clinked, eyes crinkling. To us. Still here. The sound glittered under evergreens, a symphony of chosen kin. In America's vast weave, from rainy coasts to windy hearts, we'd carved our stanza. Dramatic, suspenseful, laced with betrayal's bite and romance's balm. Human achingly so. And in that, profoundly whole.